As a man who can appreciate a good romance anime, 2023 has been a great year for the genre. This year has some of the most unique stories I have seen in a while. Some give off a nostalgic, sentimental feel, while others have a contemporary, relatable feel. There are a lot of honorable mentions, like Love in Yamada at level 9999, but these four are what I believe to be the best in 2023. So starting with The Dangers in My Heart. When the anime announcement happened for this series, I was jumping off my bed with excitement. I had been a fan of this manga for a long time. However, it was not a love at first sight. The first few chapters were mediocre, having characters I have seen in countless other animes. There are collections of stories with an edgy teenager fascinated by an airhead, but I was right to keep pushing through the initial portion of the story because these two become some of the most endearing and heartwarming couples I have ever witnessed. Kyotaro's monologue starts the story. Here, we find out that Kyotaro has a desire to brutally kill Yamada. The reason for it is Yamada's beauty and maturity. For a timid and shy boy like Kyotaro, it was a quality he subconsciously rejected. But, as the saying goes, you should never judge a book by its cover. After meeting Yamada in the library, Kyotaro finds out that Yamada is very immature and incapable of reading the room. I often see mangakas forcing the couple to interact with each other through convenient writing, but this anime's pairing made sense. The slow build of the relationship is its strong suit. Kyotaro's heart is dangerous. When you are pessimistic, even a positive theme like love can be twisted into something harmful. That is why episode 3 put it outside the box of mediocrity. Seeing Yamada in pain was his ultimate desire, but rather than fulfillment, it brought tears to his eyes. Seeing the drawing he drew, kept as a keepsake, made him realize that the feeling he had towards Yamada was love. It was such a satisfying reveal of the underlying emotion Kyotaro was feeling the entire time. There is a clear moment where Kyotaro fell in love, however, the same can't be said for Yamada. It is randomly shown that she has some feelings for Kyo in this scene. This anime is through the lens of Kyotaro, so I understand the unclearness of Yamada's emotion, but I wish it was further expanded on. I can guess it was because Kyo was Yamada and learned everything she likes, unintentionally helping her in each specific thing. For example, Kyo provided the milk Yamada was asking for, while others thus ignored the idea. Episode 6 is where the rom-com truly begins. This slowed down scene was so beautifully animated for a thing so mundane. Episode 7 lets us know how possessive Yamada can be as she is jealous of Arasan. Similarly, how she is jealous because Kyotaro doesn't add her on line. Just some good old rom-com stuff. The subtle tailoring of connections was a highlight in each episode that made their relationship much more human and believable, which is a very hard thing to do in romance. It would have been an 8 out of 10 rating, but since Kyotaro has Graham as a profile, it is an instant 10 out of 10. Jokes aside, genuinely, solely for the romance, I think it ticks every box which deserves a 10 out of 10 rating. Now, on to the next is Insomniacs After School. Insomniacs After School managed to construct some of the most human characters in all of anime. Episode 1 starts with a very somber note. Insomniacs is a condition that a lot of people could relate to. Nakami has insomnia, which always leads to spiraling into dark thoughts as the night slowly fades to daylight. We find out that the cause of his symptoms is abandonment issues. On a particular night, he wakes up to find out that his mother abandoned him. That fear, that anxiety of losing someone is something that eats his heart every time. He is afraid of tomorrow. In his mind, tomorrow will be much worse than today. That is why he wants to live an extended today. His fear of tomorrow reflects the pessimistic view he has of the world. Our other lead is also Insomniac, but for a completely different reason. Isaki was a frail child. She had an illness that forced her to stay at hospitals for long periods. With the inability to do mundane things, she was always specially treated. However, it had an opposite effect than intended. Isaki cries when her friends push her to the finish line as she doesn't want any special treatment. Her symptoms stem from the fact that everybody treated her differently. People don't understand that special treatment does more harm than good. It creates guilt that you were the reason for the downfall of an event. Both of them had setbacks that they could not overcome. Hence, there was never peace of mind due to the juggling of different anxieties. Both had different circumstances, but the root of all is loneliness. Nagami and Isaki never had a genuine connection. Yes, they did have friends, but they could not open up to them. You have to be vulnerable for love to bloom. So when they finally found salvation in the company of each other, it was an unexplainable relationship. Their heartbeats turned to lullabies, lulling them into the darkness of the night. This anime understands that human connections are the saving grace of life. It can come in the form of a husband, wife, or even friends, but when you do find the connection, you gain a mental fortitude that is hardly feeble. Insomniacs After School is a captivating story of two individuals courageously embracing vulnerability and truly comprehending each other's innermost emotions. Its beauty is in the encapsulation of each other's embrace. Another thing I want to point out is the illustrations. The landscapes shown in the anime are so beautifully drawn. The everlasting sky and the beautiful water reflection are just mesmerizing. Wrap that with romance, and it creates what I believe to be 2023's best romance so far. Every episode marks a new thing to love about the anime, especially in episode 11 where the kiss happens. We see Nakami in a very vulnerable state, and what is written is an act of affection. It is a wonderful, heartwarming story and a love letter to anyone that thinks life is draining. Speaking of heartwarming, our next anime is one of the most endearing anime I have ever watched. It is Skip and Loafer. The characters in Skip and Loafer are people with flaws. Each character has something to improve on, and the anime spends most of its screen time exploring and improving on those flaws. Incapability to move on, loving yourself, and ignorance are some of the themes explored in the anime. I have made an extensive video on my thoughts on Skip and Loafer, but to briefly summarize, it is not a romance-heavy show. The romance is subtly put into the story. It is the formation of friendships that then turn to something romantic. Mitsumi-driven personality, contrasting Shima's demotivation, is a very appreciated part of the story. If you are up for a wholesome story with great character work, don't be a loafer and skip this anime. The last anime I want to talk about is My Happy Marriage. This anime made me an exclusively seasonal viewer binge its manga due to its amazing character work. I am so sad that it only has 23 chapters, as I would like to see an optimistic Mio so much. Yes, Mio is a very pessimistic character, rightfully so, as she was not treated well by her family. Having endured relentless abuse that left her emotions shattered, it would be no exaggeration to describe Mio's experience as a living hell. Due to a political marriage, she was sent off to marry Kyoka Kudo, famous to be cruel. However, with interactions with Kudo, you quickly realize that he is a man amongst men. At first, he did not trust Mio, but slowly he starts to warm up to her. He is very suspicious about Mio's upbringing as she is a very pessimistic person. He opts to search the reason for her pessimism. At the same time, Mio, for the first time in a long time, finally loves to live. Finally, someone is there for her. In episode 3, we travel to a town full of life and interest in architecture. The reason for their visit is that Kudo wanted to buy some kimonos for Mio. He learns that she was sewing her tattooed kimono, so he wanted to gift her some clothes. At the same time, he also gives her a comb. It was a great callback to the first episode where we see the stepmother stomping on the comb of Mio's mother. The comb symbolizes where Mio's stagnant life started and ended. Episode 4 does wonders for Mio as a character. As she was gifted a comb, she also wants to give something back to Kudo. So Mio and Yurie go to the town for some shopping. There, Mio meets her sister and reality hits back to her once more. She traps herself inside, not letting anyone come close to her. Seeing this, Kudo arranges a meeting with Mio's servant, who was the only person that treated her well in the Saimori mansion. Understanding this, Mio runs to Kudo and confesses everything she was hiding. She has no powers, and she associates her worth with those supernatural abilities. She also confesses that she was treated as a servant in her home. She gives the robe she made and asks Kudo to choose her fate. However, Kudo knew about this before she confessed. He hugs Mio, assuring her that he intends to marry Mio in the future. Mio was scared that this dreamy life she was living in the Kudo mansion will one day disappear, so those reassuring words mean the world to Mio. We end off with them embracing each other while staring at the sunset. I must say, My Happy Marriage is one of the most endearing anime I have come across. The anime does a great job of making Mio empathetic, so in every scene, you root for any endeavors of Mio. It was a wonderful sequence of 4 episodes, and I cannot wait for more to drop. Recently, I also uploaded the best summer 2023 anime, so if you are interested, I will put it in the description. But for now, this will be Dungeon signing out.